indoctrinating themselves into the outpost museum with the Chinese. And we could see exactly that to decide who will head through to face off against B, as it is time for the deciding game between DeMusliM and Mr. Let's go.
Spawning in on the left side of the map, it is going to be Team Liquid representative DeMusliM in red in the Chinese. And on the other side, it is going to be Mista representing My Insanity. So both players actually representing some notable esports organizations out there. That's actually a pretty cool thing to see. I always like to highlight that when we jump into these games, because one of the things that can really benefit the growth of this game is, you know, esports organizations taking part in this. And I'm actually secretly hoping that in the coming months, we're going to see some additional pro players being signed by these teams, because, you know, just the fact that you get a regular paycheck from them potentially allows you to focus a lot more time and energy on the game. And that can just elevate the performance of you and just elevate the performance of everybody in the scene, because, you know, the standards will become higher and higher for pro games.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's very beneficial for these orgs to have those type of shoutouts in those moments. I would actually like for us to be at a stage where like we're more frequently highlighting the orgs that represent these players, or these players represent the orgs, instead of just being like DeMusliM, Mr. Like this is actually cool. Like these are two notable orgs. Liquid, obviously, you know, definitely a lot bigger, but My Insanity has been around for many years. And actually, I gotta just say, I think like Mr. probably embodies My Insanity based on their name the best out of any player, considering how crazy some of the strategies he employs are, and how bonkers the victories he's been getting in the Road to Wololo so far have been. But yeah, honestly, I hope we do see more coming to the scene. I think there's a lot of potential here. I think it's great as well for the ecosystem if it's supported by Microsoft. Like something that they actually do with Halo is they started to allow the direct teams that were involved at the highest level to sell like skins for their team in the game as part of each season going as their majors. I don't know how we'd fully craft that, like, because I'm very kind of like, I try to be weary about the way I say let's have cosmetics in the game. But if we could get like, I don't know, some stickers or whatever for players to support their favorite teams, I think that would also encourage a lot of these teams to get involved in the ecosystem.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of esports titles does. Now, in the meantime, it looks like we do have a Mongo tower rush coming in here, so we will have to cut our discussion of esports org short. This is not something that you see every day from Mista. I think Mista is probably the single Mongo player that has the lowest probability of tower rushing. He usually prefers the pasture fast castle style approaches, but it looks like he's gonna come in for a tower rush, and this could be devastating here against DeMusliM, because it looks like DeMusliM is getting caught a little bit off guard by this one. Also has a forward gold, which is not really beneficial for this. His backup gold is quite reasonable, but he's going to lose access to this gold mine, and guess what? He's gonna have to rely entirely on tax gold income for now. That tower rush could be devastating, especially because the follow-up tower is going to be on the mill, and that's where it's really getting scary.
But the follow-up one can be blocked. Look what has happened now. DeMusliM's hard on the wood. He didn't have the wood to get a defensive tower up. He can block this on the mill, and it's important because if you save the mill, you save the world. It's a little bit like the cheerleader save the world one, but the reason it matters here is because if you have that mill, you have a trickle of gold you can tax. So DeMusliM can still find a way up off the back of this detail. But if you do allow Mr. to double up on the outpost here, that's when it's doom territory for you.
Exactly. In fact, I would have preferred if Mista dropped that tower on the mill first, because that's the heart and soul of your food eco. You lose that mill, it means that you will have to either rebuild it elsewhere, or you will miss out on the supervising. Because it's not just about the tax, it's about the fact that you can supervise that mill for the extra food eco at the beginning of the game. Yet to see a tower over here from DeMusliM. I think this is the time where it... Actually... Is he bailing on this? Wait a minute.
What? No, he's got the torches. He delayed it. He delayed it because he didn't need to go yet. It's only one villager. I was waiting for this. Like, you have so many villagers here, you should just commit. Remember, when you haven't complete structures, they take 50% more damage, why he's torching it down. But the problem is the spears are starting to block him out now. Heavy damage coming in, and he's not going to block it at all. DeMusliM, too late. Not enough villagers committed. He has to back away. He has to build a backup mill. He will at least pull all the taxes out of the forward mill, but now you're not getting that double whammy value of the berries and the sheep.
Oh man, that hurts so much out there. The concept was rather straightforward. As you pointed out, he just wanted to pull the villagers, and he wanted to make sure that Mista commits a lot of time and energy into that tower before eventually knocking it down, but it was too late. Spearman guarded that as well, and with that, the second tower goes up. Barbican now being dropped on the gold mine out there. It is likely going up. In fact, there is nothing from Mista that can prevent that, but it's not going to secure the gold mine by any means. And the concern is that the number of towers is still increasing here for Mista. And the thing is that Mista has done enough damage with this already. So the next step for him is that he's just considering going fast castle, whereas for DeMusliM, his early game build order has taken a pretty severe beating, so this is not a good scenario to be in for DeMusliM.
It's very peculiar. Like, I'm curious as to why DeMusliM wanted to not just build an outpost there, because remember the Chinese can build faster. He has all these villages there. He could have blocked those outposts entirely with one outpost. The only thing I can think is he wanted to save his wood, because if you take a look in the south corner, DeMusliM is getting some shiny golden nuggets elsewhere. He ran across the map into the south corner and has been gathering on the gold here the whole time.
Which is the least tower rushable gold mine on the entire map? That's the question that DeMusliM has been asking himself. He was like, I have a secondary gold mine and even have a tertiary gold mine, but Mista will tower rush those anyways. Might as well walk a mile, and I mean a mile down south, and get myself a gold mine there. One thing is sure, Mista won't be raiding that location for the next 25 minutes, so we can classify it as safe for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sound logic. Think about this. When was the last time you saw a Mongol player outpost a corner? They don't do it. They outpost your base. You want to be as far... You want to literally be as far away from your base as you can be. And if you think about it, DeMusliM is as far away from his base as he can actually get without ending up in Mista's or Mista's home gold vein. So it's a smart move. And the cool detail about this is because Mista will never spot it, he might just think that DeMusliM's timings are going to be 2 or 3 minutes slower than they actually will be. Because although it's only 2 workers, that's going to be an extra 80 gold per minute than what Mista thinks you have.
Yeah, you could see for a brief moment that Mista actually rushed up his feudal age here. He had sent like 10 villagers on that deer stones because he saw the Barbican going up and he's afraid of those towers being taken down before arrow slits hit. So he rushed feudal age, goes arrow slits, and you see DeMusliM's immediate reaction. There is siege engineering coming in and there's an archer in the queue. He needs those towers taken down because now his second mill is also being denied. Yep. But if Mista finds a way to destroy the first ram, DeMusliM is going to be in trouble because I think the next follow-up tower is actually going to be able to reach those lumberjacks even.
Oh, I just love it. It's like, well, we could just move the sheep. Just keep, every time you move them, there's less and less, though. Like, this is the last time you can afford to do this. If you get blocked out again, like, I'm not going to be the premature GG guy, but I'll say it's like 85%. Actually, I'll be up to 90% for Mista. Like, there are recovery points right now, but it's key that you get into that siege engineering you mentioned he's going for, and you get your first rams out. It is frustrating, though, for DeMusliM, because he's doing this off the back of building archers. Like, if this was Yukinu, you have some additional use down the line. This is just going to be a throwaway unit that you absolutely need to reobtain control of your base.
And Mista could actually burn down that village, which is a pretty big loss of investment going down for DeMusliM. Also, will get Mista rewarded over here for the bounty. Archer's not pushing up, but I think it's going to be set on fire at minimum. I think he's going to be able to micro this one and set it on fire because the tower can reach the archers. That's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, he was hesitant at first, but he realized it's just a freebie, and it's going to continue to crawl around with the outposts. Another village being built on this side, but it's being built next to where the additional outposts will become from Mista. So DeMusliM might benefit from setting up his own outpost on the left side. It's kind of weird, actually, so far. Like,
he can't afford a ram, though.
Describe this is
look at DeMusliM. Did you see DeMusliM's population for a brief moment? He was down to 20.
Yeah, he was pop capped. I know the village was deleted, so he had to rebuild it. But like, is it me or has DeMusliM gone from being an outpost enthusiast in the game 1 to just like some sort of honor god in his brain saying I can't build them? Like, it's not allowed. It's not how true warriors fight.
I don't know, honestly, but at least he can finally squeeze out that battering ram. That ram was heavily delayed because he had to rebuild that village first. He had to build a blacksmith, of course, as well. And his Wood Eco was heavily harassed. The concern for him now is that you also have horsemen coming in here from Mista. I'm actually unsure if DeMusliM can clean this up in time. This is very concerning for DeMusliM over here because this is match point for both players. It's a decider game. And now you see there's going to be line of sight for that tower to shoot at those lumberjacks. If that battering ram gets cleaned up, this might be game because DeMusliM won't be able to access his food to make a new ram.
Well, DeMusliM's up to something very intriguing here. He's saving for castle quicker than Mista. So Mista might find himself, through no fault of his own really, over-invested in this feudal because of the way DeMusliM's playing this. Right now, Mista is expecting a lot more investment out of DeMusliM to reacquire control of his base. You can see that DeMusliM is being a cheapskate, though. He's keeping it very tight on what he spends to ensure that he has the resources required as quickly as possible to make it up in the castle. In fact, I'm surprised he's even going for a secondary ram, but it makes sense when you look at the lack of sheep and the fact that horsemen are now diving in onto his food eco.
Yeah, we have to keep in mind that Mista is unaware of the fact that there is some gold miners to the south. So in Mista's perspective, he doesn't know that the Muslim will have sufficient gold for Castle Age here. And this is actually something that essentially acts as a lifeline here for the Muslim. It ensures that he's gonna have enough gold to potentially castle this, and Mista might not expect it simply because Mista, in Mista's perspective, he doesn't know that there is gonna be sufficient amount of gold for the Muslim to get to castle here. This being said, Mista could also be on his way to Castle Age soon, and you see, the Muslim is still very far away from cleaning up these towers, getting closer and closer to those towers on the wood line, and as you pointed out, now it's a lack of sheep, could soon be a lack of wood, and the Muslim might reach Castle Age with simply no access to resources. That's the concerning thing for him right now.
But he's holding on. There's a reason that he's holding on. DeMusliM, the reason he went for 2 rams is he wants to get rid of the vision to hide the castle up. He doesn't want to get caught with the hand in the cookie jar. That's why he doubled up the ram count. Most players would have been happy with 1 and you slowly get rid of the outpost, but he needs them gone quick because he knows he's got the resources, but he doesn't want to forfeit over the information before he's ready to reveal his hand. Might be forced to though. Like, these rams sent out alone, archers weren't guarding because he's too busy trying to patrol on the west side, and Mista will take advantage of that to wrap in now with the Yam movement speed, able to dive in. The Muslim will try to hide inside the village and retreat towards the town center, but his eco is shutting down and shutting down fast.
Yeah, 1 battering ram goes down over here as well. Replacing those is gonna be more and more difficult, but you're slowly cleaning up the location of that first mill. And if you do that, you will have access to those berries. Spearmen slowly getting picked off by the archers. The concern for the Muslim is the amount of villagers that are actually working. So many idols. Many of those villagers are also heavily damaged, so a good raid from Mista could do a tremendous amount of damage, and ultimately, Mista might actually beat the Muslim to Castle Age over here because he himself is getting ready for Castle.
Well, we see the frustration. DeMusliM, he holds torches in, but now the horsemen, they're going to block him off. The body blocks come out. Heavy damage done to probably half the worker force there. Gets most of them home. 1 will not make it back to their family. 2, in fact, going out. 3rd one alongside it, and this is getting grim. Mista keeps up the pressure while making his way up to Castle, and DeMusliM is overboomed on the gold now. He can barely afford to go for Castle, but he still doesn't have the wiggle room to do so due to the outpost he still hasn't gotten rid of.
And you see that there is barely enough archers to build that battering ram. It takes so much time. And the tower is also taking shots on the archers building those rams. Every single unit being lost over here is so painful for the Muslim. Many villagers also heavily damaged over here. 2 towers firing at them. And when you reach Castle Age from Mista, you will also unlock Spring Gold emplacements. It's now or never for the Muslim.
That's why he's rushing it right now. He needs to burn these towers down. He's starving. He's running out of food. DeMusliM has 20 food income. Look how close he is to what he needs for Castle, and yet he gets further away. Berry's finally re-accessed, but the delay here, the strike at the heart of his economy is going to stunt his growth while Mista booms up into Castle.
And the moment you reach Castle Age, you're going to see some Lancers appearing. Lancers that are going to be much braver when it comes to diving underneath the town center. Much braver when it comes to trying to just jump on those archers. And also Spring Gold emplacements. Looks like it is going to be 2 additional barracks being added as well. Men-at-Arms Lancers, I don't know how the Muslim is gonna deal with that, because you see, he is yet to start building that astronomical clock tower for Castle Age. At least he's going to get there, but what's the price of this one? Because one thing we haven't mentioned yet is the worker count. 29 for the Muslim, 45 for Mista, plus the step redoubt. This is looking extremely grim right now for the Muslim.
Now, I do know that historically at one point, like, these 2 civilizations' cultures intertwined. And I think we've arrived there because they seem to be role-playing each other. Just to say that out loud again, you're saying the Mongols have a lot more villages than the Chinese. That doesn't sound like your usual game of Age of Empires 4, Lidakor.
Not at all. And you're also gonna have most of the relics falling into their hands as well, because you could see Mista dropping that prayer tent already, going for improved siege engineering. The problem for the Muslim is that he has this civilization to recover with. It's the fact that I don't think he's gonna have the timing to recover. Notably, the Mista is actually taking berries with the Mongols, so his eco is also not fully optimized, let's just say that. But he's still in a really good position.
He's got a lot more wiggle room as the difference maker here. I mean, DeMusliM is still dealing with these outposts. Let's think about like what the maths was involved in here. 7 outposts total from Mista. DeMusliM has made 3 rams so far. 2 of them have died. Worth. On top of that, of course, denying the eco in itself, even if he lost the outpost to 1 ram, would have been worthwhile. But this is just phenomenal value for Mista, and it's why he's miles ahead. DeMusliM, by the way, won't catch up on the villager deficit anytime soon. Because usually in this situation, a Chinese player has something called Song Dynasty that makes it so easy to rebuild your villages. When was the last time at 15 minutes into a game you saw a Chinese player without Song Dynasty?
Probably 29th of October 2021, the day after AoE 4 was released. You get that impression. You're right about that one for sure. I mean, Song Dynasty is like a life and death type of thing for the Chinese, and this has been missing out the whole time. Obviously, as you said, DeMusliM was trying to reach Castle Age, so he didn't want to spend resources on it. But now he's facing a different problem. The berries completely depleted, and he's gonna have to once again fight for any kind of food control. Something that he simply can't do right now. He's only Spearman against Men-at-Arms, against Mangonels. He is being suffocated right now inside his base.
It's so bad because of the spawn as well. If you look at the generation around him, like all of his food is pushed to this one direction. Now, this can be an upside if you're not oppressed like this, but in this situation, it is to your detriment. You had your berries, the follow-up berries on the same screen, and the deer above it. Everything that DeMusliM needs to recover his game is in more or less the same location, and it makes it very easy for Mista to utilize slow-moving troops like the Man-at-Arms into siege to guard you against any way back into this game. Usually in these situations, when you have food spread out in multiple directions, the only option for a Mongol player to keep you boxed in is to go for Lancers. But Mista, because he doesn't need that mobility, is getting a lot more value. Lancers cost 240 resources each. These Men-at-Arms only cost 120.
And they can also build siege weapons like we're seeing Mista doing it. In the meantime, there is a patch of deer down to the south of the Muslims' base, but Mista preemptively towered that, and that is probably a Spring Golden placement even on that tower. So even if you went that direction, you wouldn't be able to access that. You see, there's actually a tower without an emplacement, but at least Mista will be aware in case you move out in that direction. In fact, Mista's got really good vision all across the map here. Finally, Song Dynasty is coming in here for DeMusliM to offset that villager deficit, but now he's facing a different problem. Mista, with full map control, is picking up relics, he could secure sacred sites, and I get the feel that unless this game goes to like 30-35 minutes length, DeMusliM is always going to be behind in terms of economy.
And keep in mind that Mist is reaching a stage that he can actually go for double TC. Most Mongol players go for the second town center between 17 and 19 minutes, and it's become quite a streamlined build now. And I wouldn't be surprised if Mista goes into it. Yes, you know, he's not as active in the leaderboards as other people, but he's fully aware of this build. Like some of you mentioned early on, how he always went into the pastures. That became like the staple play for a lot of Mongols about a month and a half ago. And Mista really paved the way in the M4C days with that build. So I'm sure he's fully aware of the ups and downs of going for a secondary town center. And if he spots that Song Dynasty boost, he might choose to just insulate his eco further because he's already looking to reach critical mass in the relic department.
Clock Tower Springolds working to great effect over here, actually. Obviously, having higher HP than those standard Springolds helps a lot here, taking these engagements, and the micro is very nice from DeMusliM, so he's holding on for his dear life for the time being. The concern is that he's not moving ahead in this game, because as you pointed out, Mista could just choose to add a second town center himself anytime soon. He's going to have the relics, he's going to have the sacred sites, and the lack of resources inside the Muslim's base is still going to haunt him for a long, long time. Ultimately, that small gold mine to the south, the only gold mine he has access to, is also going to get depleted.
Over 1,000 gold has been taken off that gold vein. But those guys, honestly, they deserve a promotion, a raise, whatever the hell they get in this situation. They've been working their ass off for the Chinese Empire. What's everyone else been doing at home? Taking coffee breaks, not gathering food all the time, running around their base screaming. They've been working non-stop down there.
Yeah, they were the only two guys not in home office, you get the feel, in the Muslims' economy.
Yeah, I mean, they were just out there in the wildlife. They were undefended, and they found a way. What are these guys' excuses? They had guardsmen in place with archers. They had giant ballistas that could guard them, and yet they still keep dying. They still keep failing to gather. It's not on, I'm telling you. Those guys deserve a raise. And now the Man-at-Arms moving. Ooh, pop cap right now. DeMusliM, this will pop cap him.
Yeah, this is gonna be ugly. That's the drawback of villages, right? You lose them, suddenly you get pop capped, and it's going to be at the worst possible time because the Men-at-Arms are flooding in.
Well, he got the perfect number, but definitely not the perfect situation because now it's going to be rushing. Man-at-Arms, the torches out, chasing on the Springolds. He needs to rebuild into the village, but he hasn't even committed yet. Now doing it across on the deer side means it's less likely to be raised to the ground again. But this dive through could do some serious damage. The only thing Mista's missing behind this is the trebuchets. One interesting difference in his Mongol build, no trebs in the field, so no way of starting to blitz down these buildings. Instead, he needs to dive for hard, cold blood, and it will be cold as it spills out of the Muslim's body, as he spills out of this series. Mista is able to move on, and what a way to do it to close out this series.
Beautiful Mongol game over here from him. He went for a tower rush. And as you pointed out, DeMusliM, he may have just, decided not to react to the tower rush. Maybe he didn't think that TheMista is going to go this aggressive on this tower rush, because he could have gone for a preemptive tower, or he could have gone even for a reactionary tower to that tower rush. Decided not to, decided to just relocate. Maybe he thought Mista's going to bail out on that one after 2 or 3 towers, but Mista had different ideas. He went to like 9 or 10 towers and ultimately just boxed DeMusliM inside his base so effectively. And the overall resources gathered tells you the whole story. Delayed Song Dynasty from DeMusliM, so much idle time, so much inefficiency because of how good DeMista's tower rush was. And with that, DeMista moves on to the semifinals over here with a 2-1 win against DeMusliM.